reality
Therapist
what's going
perception.
on.
Bachelorette. Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I am Chris, still here, episode 2, not a therapist, but show requires opinions, and I have opinions.
I hate to break it to you, but you're going to be here for every episode of the season.
What about Catherine?
Well, Catherine can pitch hit sometimes, but you're it, baby. Sorry.
This was
I know you continue to be surprised that you're here every week, but I'm just gonna spoiler, as you like to say, you're in for the season.
All right. Well, tonight was quite the series of events. Real quick, I want to let everybody know we're all about truth and honesty around here. We were 8 minutes late to the episode. Why were we 8 minutes late to the episode?
This is embarrassing.
Apparently, our streaming service no longer streams The Bachelor live. We discovered this at 7:59. Thankfully, Amy's parents live a few blocks down. So we hopped in the car, raced over there. Unfortunately, I had spent the time prior to the episode setting up the equipment and not eating dinner. And so we got to her parents' house and I'm ravenous, thinking I was going to eat during the commercials. Her parents are out of town. So of course, I did what any good son-in-law does and tried to raid the fridge, and there was nothing there. And finally, I realized that the only thing that I could find was some twice frozen, twice previously heated Trader Joe's Mandarin chicken. So this is going to be a fast episode because I am both hungry and really sick to my stomach right now. I would say, hey, Trader Joe's, give us a sponsor, but I ain't got nothing positive to say about the Trader Joe's Mandarin chicken. That's where I'm going to start this episode. Okay. So shall we get into it?
So we are fresh off the episode. Time of recording is 10:24, way past my bedtime. So yeah, we're going to see how this goes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yes. So what we are talking about tonight on Reactivity TV is week 2, episode 2 of Joey's season, which is season 28 of The Bachelor. So as we were watching this, Chris kept saying he had a lot of hot takes. So we are going to get into all of that and all of what went on tonight's episode of The Bachelor. But before we do, please be sure to hit that like button at the bottom of this video. And also please subscribe to our channel. These two pretty small things go a really long way and we appreciate them so much.
Yeah. And also please hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel.
Okay. Well, speaking of subscribers and ways that people can interact with our channel, we have our Bachelor Survivor pool.
We do. Got a ton across all of the platforms. I haven't tallied up the final count, but we got a good group of people that have submitted requests across, not just YouTube, but multiple YouTube videos, but also across IG and all the TikTokies and all the other ones, all the places. Yeah, all the places on the social medias. So, so we got a really good group of people, and I'm going to put those all together, and I'll let you know hopefully next episode exactly how many people we got playing. But shall we reveal? And I want to point out we made these lists, wrote them down, put them in a box prior to the episode. So we are not getting the benefit of episode 2. These were picks that were already set in stone. I, however, had an auxiliary pick because I had decided early on that in case we have the same picks, I was going to audible out. And so go ahead and you reveal your top 4.
Okay, so I'm going with Daisy, Maria, Kelsey A.
Which one's, there's 2 Kelseys. Which one's that?
Kelsey has the beautiful mermaid hair, and she came, I think she's from New Orleans, and she came with a voodoo doll.
Oh,
I may be choosing her because she's got great hair, but so her, and then my last pick is Allison, one of the sisters. And as we were watching this episode, I was like, damn it, I wish I didn't pick Allison because I thought that had some different thoughts.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to go based on what we saw in episode 2. So those are my picks.
All right. All right. Well, it's good I have the auxiliary because we went 3 for 4. Daisy was my number 1. Maria was my number 2. Jen is kind of my wild card. I really like Jen, and I think she has the makings of somebody who can go far in this competition. So I'm excited to see that. But I do think that she's a little wild cardish. And then my last pick was actually going to be Allison, but since I don't want us to share three, my audible is I'm gonna do it. She's even a bigger wild card than Jen. But I'm gonna go with Lexi.
Ah, fuck you. That's who I was going to pick.
Okay. Was that good?
Yeah.
You're out of Allison. Well, nope. Sorry, you already picked Allison. I'm picking Lexi.
I should have gone second.
Yeah. Hey, listen. I'm a chivalrous individual. Ladies first. So yeah. All right. So you are. We're both Daisy and Maria.
Mhm.
You have Allison and Kelsey,
Kelsey
with
A.
the mermaid hair, and I have Jen and Lexi.
I think I could see Lexi going far. The only reason now I could see Allison going far is to reintroduce Lauren back in, like at hometowns, as they alluded to. But I just don't know. I don't know how far Allison gets. I just don't know how far Allison gets. And Lexi was on in my four, like after we watched last week. And then I just kind of felt like I think she might just fade into the background too much. And
That's
then,
my concern.
yeah.
She's either going to come on strong. I felt better about her as my auxiliary pick as the episode 2 went on, which we'll get into, but definitely I feel like is the weakest pick of my four, and the most kind of whippy or cuspy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it is interesting. One thing I wish that we asked our viewers, which maybe this week, if you want to share in the comments, I'd love to hear like your strategy for picking your four, because I think the reason that I kind of like whipped all over the place was like I initially was like, okay, who are Joey's top 4? And then I was like, no, I don't think that's the right way to think about that. Like, who do we think production's gonna like? Who do we think like just will stir up enough drama to stick around and make it interesting? Who's going to be our narrator? And so I was like really trying to think about it from a show perspective, not just a Joey perspective. And so I don't know that I necessarily got quite around to like that kind of strategy, but the way that I thought about my picks changed throughout the week.
See, I think that's actually a really smart strategy, because think of it in terms of statistical analysis and the number of data points you have. You don't know Joey at all. You've known him for a little bit in charity season and one episode here and a couple of episodes of him doing various different talk shows and stuff like that prior to the season. But you have 50 plus seasons worth of data points for production. I would venture to guess that the average viewer of this show probably has a better idea of who production is going to like and stick around than who Joey will. So if you just play the production strategy, then you're probably likely to at least score above the 50% threshold.
Sure. Notice though, neither of us picked Jess.
No,
you don't even think from a production standpoint.
I think
stick around?
because you know me, I don't like to reward bad behavior, and somehow giving her a vote is somehow rewarding bad behavior in the most infinitesimally small way. But still, I'm not I can't in good conscience condone that type of behavior.
Well, Joey can. So but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. Well, so let's go right into that. Okay. So I feel like this was you love talking about the soft front, strong back. This was a super weak back moment for Joey, right?
Which
specifically, so not to bury the lead too much here, but we get a sob story out of Jess, and she ends up getting the group date one's rose. She didn't deserve it. I feel like this was a pity sympathy rose, which we've seen. It just felt like a very performative thing to try and get some attention and stay in Joey's line of sight. And he responded with what I thought was a very undeserved rose.
Okay, so we're jumping ahead to the group date rose then.
Well, I just want to talk about Joey's week back. Was this a week back moment? We can get into group date later.
He must really like Jess. I'm just gonna say that. I don't necessarily name it a weak backed moment, but what I will say is that, to your point, like Jess's narrative is not unique, and we also need to do the math here. That she is 24. She hasn't been in a relationship, I think she said, for a couple of years. and the relationship she was in was 3 years long. So we're talking about her being in a teenager when in this
19 to 22 at the latest, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And so college relationship, maybe where there's infidelity. And this is not to say like I condone infidelity or I want to normalize it in any way, but these are immature relationships where there's
oftentimes not serious relationships.
Yeah.
They're, oftentimes relationships out of convenience and not necessarily out of, love or out of shared value systems. It's you're attractive, we go to school together, let's, we have fun together. Those are the types of relationships we're talking
right.
about.
You might not be picking a girlfriend or a boyfriend based on like shared values.
Yeah. There's a framework by which most successful relationships are predicated upon.
And so there was a part of me that like, the jaded part of me was like, who hasn't been cheated on in college? So there was a part of me that was like, this isn't that unique or isn't, but that like, that's not fair for me, like as the therapist in me to say like, everyone, oh gosh, to forecast future into the episode, like everyone's feelings are valid as, Sydney, is that her name?
Medina.
Yeah.
Medina. Sydney was the one who came to Medina's unrequested aid, I guess is how I'd frame that.
So anyway, so there was a part of me that was like, this is not like a terribly like huge deal, but that's not to, like everyone has their own like reaction to stressful things that happen. And I think that we see this again on most seasons, that if you are insecure or if you do have a previous experience with infidelity, whether that's your own or you've witnessed it within your family, like this is not going to be a really helpful environment for you to be in, where you are literally signing up to get triggered.
Yes,
And so like there is a part of me that like it feels like so to be expected, that it just felt like all the women are probably feeling like this. Like all the women are probably feeling triggered and feeling like they're having a hard time watching someone that they like kissing and being with other women.
Literally the premise of the show is one person is going to cheat on 32 people and you're going to know about it and have to deal with it in your face. Like that is literally the premise of the show. So yeah, it's a little, I'm with you. You have to question the believability of and listen, there's plenty of times where people put themselves in a situation and they don't know that it's going to be as triggering as they think it's going to be. But then there are other times where you have to question. I think this is a great case with Jess, where I don't believe anything she's selling.
Well, that is the thing. Oh, I thought you were going down a road I was going to have a hard time with, which is like, you know what you signed up for. That's like often the argument when like cast members like have reactions to being on the show. And I
think it's legitimately that I just don't believe that Jess is being triggered here. I think this is all performative.
Well, who knows? I don't know. I know we're not in her brain. We don't really know how triggered she was. And I also agree with you that she doesn't read as authentic, and she does seem quite performative, and she knows what she's doing. Yeah. And Joey likes her. Like, and so I think we need to also understand that like any other woman could have told him this, and I don't know that he would have given any other woman a rose for this. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. He seems to be giving those roses away pretty freely at this point. He's got a lot of them. He's got 19 of them. So he
can be a little loose.
He can be a little loose. Yeah. I'm sure he's got his like 5 or 6 that he definitely wants to hang on to. Production is picking a bunch more, and then the rest are like throwaways. So let me just get a good edit. So this does bring up 2 other points I want to talk about. I want to propose something to production. I want in every group date mandatory. He gives one like impression rose away every group date. I want him to punt one person every group date. Like I want him to be forced to be like, sorry, you didn't perform in this one. You're going home.
So you're saying instead of the group date rose, you want him to...
No. Let's do both. Let's do
one for one.
Yeah, one for one. One of you is getting in, one of you is going home. Like let's. That's what I want to see.
Why?
Because there's just too many women. I mean, and this is what I think one of my big problems with this particular episode was it felt like so much happened and I have no idea what happened. There's too many women. No one got any meaningful screen time really, except for Daisy because she got the one-on-one date. but like I feel like I have no connection to almost any one of these women because
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you more than, you know, one or two things about maybe five of these women.
And you're not gonna like
Yeah.
you're not going to until there's like 12 left.
Yeah, so
So
let's cull them faster. If you're going to start us with this many people, let's you know, trim down the numbers a little bit faster, because to me this was, in some ways, there was so much fat in this episode. Well, it's almost like it's like a contradictory type thing where this episode needed to be 3 hours long. I don't want it to be 3 hours long. 2 hours was long enough, but it wasn't long enough for the number of women we had. So either get rid of some of these women faster, or you got to give us a longer episode and give us some actual meat. And I definitely don't want the 3 hour episode.
yeah, but the thing is, like, no, we don't. Please, no 3 hour episode. But the thing is, we do need all the women because we don't know how the dynamics are going to unfold yet. And when the house gets too small too quickly, there's not enough. There's not enough to like drama to feed on, you know, or to cling to. So that's like part of it. Like it would be very boring if like we knocked it down to 10 already. And we've had seasons that were abbreviated where it was like, oh wait, what happened? And
Okay.
so we need it for the behind the scenes. Like Skylar, for example, is that her name? Am I saying it right?
Who's Skylar?
Sydney?
Sydney. You're thinking Skylar because we were just talking about Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Sydney was, yeah, Sydney. She's no going nowhere.
No, but we need her. We needed her for tonight. I mean, we could have done without her. Don't get me wrong, but like she was the one stirring the pot. She's not going to go far. She's not like really in it to win it. I'm sorry if that was one of your picks. I don't think I saw her name on any of the lists.
I don't remember seeing her now.
But you know, like we need these characters or cast members that like again aren't going to go very far. We love the ones that know they're not going to go very far. So they're the ones that stir the drama or spill the tea or whatever it is. Like, and so like that's what makes it a show. That's what makes it entertaining. But it's not all about finding love here, Chris. Like
I am well aware of that. Yes, that's okay. Yeah, that's it's a fair argument. Why we need to keep some of these people around a little bit longer. So
I just want to take a quick pause to tell you that Revive is hiring. In our Miami and Pittsburgh offices, we have full and part-time W-2 and 1099 clinician positions available, and this includes both postgraduate and associate level licenses, in addition to fully licensed clinicians. In our Connecticut offices, we have full-time, fully licensed W-2 clinician positions available, including clinical supervisor opportunities. If you are interested in working for a company that values community, work-life balance, and your personal and professional growth, then we want to meet you. Find a link to our website in our bio.
Okay, well, you know, we beat around the bush long enough. Let's just get into some of the dates. So we have 3 dates. We have 2 group dates, and we have a one-on-one date. So
and not every woman gets a date.
No, Leah, actually, who obviously, Leia. You know, I'm thinking of the Star Wars Leia, which is it's got the I in there. It's just it just doesn't compute that that's the same name to me. So yeah, Leia is one who does not get a date. Now, I want to just spend opening 2 seconds here on the dynamics of the 2 group dates. So we have roughly half the women go on a faux wedding where they're all the bride. They all get some one-on-one time with them. They do some dancing. They go around the crowd. They do some pictures. They eat cake. And then the other roughly half of the women go on basically a bachelor boot camp where they play a very bizarrely ruled version of Capture the Flag.
Unclear what was happening.
Don't understand what any of the paintball had to do with it at all. It doesn't seem relevant. They should have just been tackling each other. But there's no engagement whatsoever directly with Joey. There's no one-on-one time. And then the winner of the best faux bride gets a first dance with Joey, and
then they still have a
cocktail portion where he gets to talk to all the women. But the second group date, only one woman gets some time from the winning team. Yeah. So I just have to ask, and this is a question, but I'm framing it as a statement. The second date was the B squad, right? Like these are the women that he has no interest in. They were just kind of the extra roses from last episode. because I mean, comparing these two group dates, it is no question. One was superior in every way, shape, or form. You got to dress up pretty, you got to eat cake, you got to spend quality time. This other one, you're running around in the mud, getting covered in paint, and then you don't even get time with Joey. I mean, they're just not even. It's almost a slap in the face.
Before, by the way.
Right. So my hypothesis is this was the B squad, and you could just send them all home right now. Thoughts?
I mean, you said that when we were watching, and it didn't really occur to me, but I get the logic. Like, I could understand why you think so. Like in our first episode of Reactivity TV this season, I had talked about like the insanity of Leia throwing the card in the fire because time is so precious. And Joey knows that too. And so again, time is so precious. How did he not advocate for extra time, even in like the evening portion with just the winner? That's usually what we see. We see like, the winning team gets extra time, and that like again causes more drama. That was shocking to me that he didn't pick like to have time with the winning team. I wonder if there was something else behind the scenes that we don't know about going on, why that didn't happen. But that was baffling to me. Like how did he not elect somehow to have extra time with them unless he felt like he didn't need it or want it?
Yeah, I mean, the one really concerning thing about my
Unless he really wanted to spend time with Edwina.
which that's possible, but here's the concerning part of my hypothesis is that Jen is in what I call the B squad, and she's in my top 4, and I believe your Kelsey was in the B squad as well, right?
Kelsey and Allison.
And Allison were both in there.
Not looking too good over here.
It is possible though that it wasn't necessarily the B squad, but it was the safe people. Maybe it was the people that he already had a connection with, that he knew were going to go through, and he wanted to open up opportunity for other people. Who was actually in that second group date? It was in some cases the bigger personalities, right? Borrowing like Maria and stuff like that. But you did have the Jen who is not afraid to be outgoing. You had Allison who's not afraid to shoot her shot.
I mean, if you're thinking about the first group date and like group dates are very anxiety provoking. They're really hard, and it's hard to stand out on them. And it takes a certain type of personality for group dates in general, but specific group dates. And so again, if this is a kindness of Joey, he's really trying to be strategic about who goes on what date in order to make them feel the most comfortable, the most at ease. What he said he was looking for on the group date was competitiveness. And so I was also kind of thinking, is he also putting some more reserved women on this date to see how they engage and how they do? Like, is he like we know he's assessing for kind of that competitiveness. He loves a strong, feisty woman.
I mean, he's an athlete.
Yeah, he's an athlete.
Right? He's an athlete. He is going to be competitive by nature. I mean, even by male standards, he's going to be competitive. And it's going to take a certain type of woman who's going to be able to understand and hang with that competitiveness. Because that competitiveness never goes away.
Yeah.
And you need somebody who understands what drives you.
Sure.
And that's what a dynamic in our relationship that really works is we are both highly driven and competitive in different ways so that we don't butt heads, but we understand each other. And he's going to need somebody like that. So yeah, assessing for that in a group date is probably a good call on his part. So we talked a lot about this kind of the lame second date. Let's talk a little bit about the first date, because that had some more interesting stuff going on. It was the faux wedding. They all come out. They start off playing. Oh,
well, hold on. Let's back up here because we missed portions like the lead up to.
Thank God for the Revive
Shout
Bachelor
out to Revive team,
filling
Slack
channel,
most dramatic Slack channel ever. Specifically, Allie, thank you for being our correspondent on the field here. But we learned from our team that one really important piece of context that we were missing while we watched is that Lauren had talked about how her dad had died, and that going on a
somewhat recently as well, right? Yeah.
Going on a date like this, where she's kind of putting on a wedding dress and imagining her wedding, was bringing up a lot of feelings for her. And so
understandably so.
That made a lot of sense as to why she was so withdrawn, and she referred to herself as salty throughout the date.
We said last episode, she's not going to win this. Joey is not interested in her. The insecurities are causing her to kind of get in her own way.
She totally self-sabotaged.
And yeah, self-sabotage.
Lauren is the only one that doesn't get a lot of time. The other women like really put themselves out there though in this date. In the musical chairs portion, we have, Evelyn,
That was my favorite
diving
part.
over the table.
And she still didn't get the chair. That's the tragedy.
Yeah.
That's the tragedy.
But like A for effort, that was awesome to see. Rachel, you know, she ends up getting the like first dance. And like you get why. Like she was great. She like really acted as if like kind of called herself Mrs. G, giving the like a reception speech. We see moments with Joey and Jess as well. And so again, you really get a feel for these women, how much they're willing to put themselves out there, how much they can go with the flow. It is like this is a really good test of someone's personality, how outgoing they are, and depending on who you are as a person and what you're looking for, what your qualities are, that's probably going to be meaningful to you. Like if Joey's a social guy and like and or has a big family or whatever, like he's going to want to feel like the person that he is dating can hang. And he didn't necessarily note that, but a date like this could really assess something like that.
Yeah. So I had written down in the notes of the first episode that Evelyn looks like a professional tennis player. And so when I saw her just literally go hurtling over the table, I'm like, checks out for me. Like, yeah, that athleticism is kind of what I was expecting to see. Not necessarily in the form I was expecting to see it, but I was down for it. You know what? Listen, I appreciate the aggressive and the assertiveness and the effort. She didn't get a chair. It's tragic. But you know what? She made the effort. And you know what? It's one of those moments where it doesn't actually matter what the outcome was. The impact of the moment was so strong that's good. You will remember that seasons from now. You may not remember her name depending on how far she goes, but you know, you will always remember the girl who hurdled the table, you know, to get the seat next to Joey. You know, and that is meaningful because guys have this thing where, you know, you talked about it in the past where, you know, the first impression rose is not meaningful on The Bachelor. It's much more meaningful on The Bachelorette. And part of it is because kind of out of sight, out of mind. So the more impactful moments you can have like that, the, you know, where you will be remembered and stand out. Like Joey's never going to sit down at a long banquet table ever again and not remember the time a girl hurdled the table for him. Right. That's how you live in the mind of a guy. Ladies, just some advice. I'm not recommending you hurdle tables at the dining room table all the time, but you get what I'm saying.
Well, speaking of aggressive and assertive and making strong efforts, we have to talk about Maria.
Let me tell you, I am so happy I picked her. You know what? I just, it's all so performative, but she gets what she's doing. She knows the game she's playing. I do want to point out one thing here. Okay. So the backstory is here. She grabs him in the cocktail party after well, not the cocktail party, the after hours
reception,
after party reception thing. Yeah. And she's wearing this loose, whatever, white kind of dressy
sort of thing.
Yeah, of course, whatever kind of cute little dress thing. And she decides to put on something much skimpier. Now,
much more comfortable.
Much more comfortable. Now, here's my first thing. I cannot imagine that what that wardrobe change had to have taken at least 7 minutes. Will you tell me? Am I in the vicinity? If you're going fast, rushing, 7 minutes maybe. I'm not sure that those 7 minutes were worth wasting. I wonder if leaving him sitting there for the 7, 8 minutes, even if it's 5 minutes, I think I would have rather have had the time. We talk all the time about that.
Now, she made an impression.
But here's the thing. And, you know, I actually, in a weird sort of way, I actually think the white dress was a little bit sexier. And it was not as, it didn't fit as well. But the thing that actually made the white dress a little bit sexier was there was a little bit more of a slip and fall aspect to it. Like things were just going to like maybe slide out, which there's a sexiness to that. The overt thing can be sexy too. But I think she wasted time and she also ended up making herself a target with the other women. And so wasted time in making yourself a target when you were already wearing something that was already quite cute and quite sexy. I question in a long-term strategy. Short-term, I think it worked fantastic. He was in, he was distracted.
He was so in. He was like, I know I don't know
They have
anything
the best
about
makeout
you.
sessions. Yeah, yeah.
I know you're from Canada.
I know I'm supposed to ask more, but get over here with those.
Yeah, basically is what he said. Like, but I can't, ever since you changed, I can't stop thinking about this. And then they kiss.
She's playing the game very, very well. Production's gonna love her. They're gonna want to keep her around.
Holding his attention.
Holding his attention.
She's gonna have to start doing more though. Like, yes, it's gonna have to deepen at some point. But like for right now, like staying in mind, holding his attention. She knows what she's doing. And I appreciate her confidence. I don't actually see, like, sometimes when women on this show lead so much with sex, I like often think it's from a place of insecurity. I'm not getting that from her. No.
She's quite confident.
She seems very at home in her body and in herself. And we see that later on when they're talking about age. And so like there is an aspect, like when we were watching last week, it was like, gosh, this woman is so annoying. But like there was a part of me this week that was rooting for her.
You know what was a turning point for me for her? Was when at the wedding reception, she was outside talking to Lauren, and she was really trying to pump her up in a way like I kind of pegged her more as going to be out for herself in a way that was going to be more clever and Machiavellian than Jess is. I thought she'd basically be Jess, but better. And I'm not getting that from her. I'm actually getting like, actually, she's playing a character, she's playing the game, but I actually do genuinely think that deep down, she's actually a good person.
Yeah.
And I was not expecting that.
She, and again, like going to sort of the ending or near the end of the episode with Medina, like Maria seems someone who's so confident and secure that she's good pumping other women up, like
not intimidated,
not intimidated at all. And I think that's what tends to be really threatening and intimidating for these women on these seasons at times. So yeah, she's definitely a walking target, but shouldn't necessarily need to change into, a black lacy set she could have stayed in her white corset outfit. It's her confidence and her self assuredness and security that is also intimidating. Did their eyes like pop out of their heads when they saw her walk in this number? Yeah.
Which it wasn't that bad. It was a skirt and basically a bikini, a bra top that's covers the same amount as a bikini. Like it wasn't actually that over the top outrageous. It really wasn't. She changed. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But anyway, so that happens. And then we also see this conversation on the date with Jess that we talked about.
Well, before I want to say one other thing about Maria. Okay. So I do want to point this out because this is a kind of an interesting dynamic thing. She actually exhibits a very male quality. So it's relevant because, as I talked about earlier, Joey is an athlete. The thing about men in competition is men, men who are confident want to compete against the best. Always. We don't want to win. We want to beat the best. And we would rather lose to somebody who's better than us than beat somebody who's weaker than us. And so we have no problem pumping other men up if it means that they are going to be a better rival and better competition, right? And this is a dynamic that a lot of women don't really understand because women's brains don't operate on that competitive nature like that you guys are social creatures, and stuff like that. And so I think it's really an interesting dynamic because we see Maria, what is she doing? She's in the lead in a lot of ways. And I think objectively, we can look back and say, she seems to be winning right now, or at least in the top 3. And she has no problem pumping all of these other women up. I will help. I will empower you. I have no problem going and talking to Lauren and trying to make her feel better and trying to keep her stay. And I have no problem, going to, saying, Medina, like, be proud of your age. It's wonderful type thing. And typically you don't see that in the small experience I have of this show, and women in general. That's typically not what you see when they get into a competitive nature, right? In a competitive competition or any sort of situation like that, you see much more of a tearing of each other down. You can elaborate more as to why that happens. I won't opine, but that's what you typically see. And so I think it's really an interesting aspect of Maria's character. And it's something that Joey will be able to relate to in a way that he won't relate most likely to the other women in this. which I think is a fascinating thing to watch and pay attention to.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, that's interesting. An interesting take that, I didn't consider. So I appreciate the
So
insight.
I interrupted you. You were going on to Jess.
Yeah, I was going to move on to Jess and just kind of revisit what we were talking about just for the sake of like closing up the first group date, which is that she was kind of saying that she was sort of in her feelings throughout the date and feeling insecure, and that it was bringing up these old feelings. And then she talks to Joey about like this infidelity that she experienced in her previous relationship. Joey shares with her his experience of being in a relationship where he changed a lot for that person to make the other person happy, and that ended up not making Joey very happy. So kind of relating to being in relationships with like not the right people, and that and it having an impact. And so that was like an interesting tidbit about Joey that sounds like he was a little bit of maybe a people pleaser. And
He seems like the type.
yeah, yeah, I agree. And so that I just wanted to note because that will be definitely something I'm going to pay attention to as we go through this season, and in terms of how like Joey makes decisions or doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, the one thing about Joey that I'm struggling with a little bit in this episode is that there are moments where I think he's extraordinarily authentic and genuine, and then there are other moments where he feels robotic and inauthentic to me. And it feels like he has been really well prepped from a PR perspective. He's always saying the perfectly correct thing. He's, and I'm not saying it's not always genuine, but I'm saying like even his face to cameras after each date, I do not believe that you think every one of these women is amazing. I don't believe that. I know you have to say it, but it's almost like he's saying the same cadence, the same words, the same cadence. And when he breaks from that, that's when I feel like, oh, he actually cares. Daisy and Maria, he breaks from that cadence. He breaks and uses different word choices. And that's why I think they are the two that are in the lead right now, because everybody else, you could literally just clip all of his face to cameras about each one of them and just play them in any arbitrary order. And you'd have no copy and paste names. Right. And that's sort of the thing that I'm finding a little inauthentic. Right. And in the moment, I think he shows a tremendous amount of compassion, a tremendous amount of empathy. He seems to know how to interact, especially when somebody's getting emotional, like Edwina and the one-on-one date with Daisy. And like those moments, he just seems to know the right thing to say. But if you ever watch, he's literally saying every time it's the same, you know, series of actions and words that he's taking, to the point where it's like, okay,
well, what's he supposed to say? He doesn't know these women yet.
I get that. I get that. But at some point it just feels, and I get it. Look, you're going to be on a show with millions of people watching. You want to put your best foot forward. You're going to, try and play everything as safe as possible.
I don't think he's playing nice guy though.
No, I think he's a genuinely nice guy. Yeah. Yeah. But it feels a little PR'd to me. And I would like
a little too perfect.
A little too perfect. I'd like him to be a little bit more authentic. Okay. So the one-on-one date goes to both of our first round picks, Daisy. I like Daisy from the start. Cute as a button. So sweet. Great story. And I damn near just fell in love with her this episode. I mean, everything you could want. If you are true and genuine about wanting to find a wife, she checks a lot of boxes. A lot of boxes. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it was a great date, and they seemed like genuinely compatible. You could see them outside of here, and I think Joey was kind of having the same feeling. Like I felt, and I think he said, like I felt like I was just out with my girlfriend, and he had said that he picked this date, and I don't know how much he picked it or the producers picked it, but that he learned in the night one that Daisy really liked music, so wanted to pick a date where it could be something that they would do outside of here, which I've never really heard a Bachelor say before. So I liked that kind of thoughtfulness and that attention to detail. And again, really trying to use this experience to imagine a life outside of here. And on The Bachelor and Bachelorette, it's really hard to do that because the dates are so, sensationalized. They're not realistic. And so like anyone can fall in love, like on a yacht in the middle of a beautiful, Caribbean Ocean, or in Paris or wherever. But like, can everyone fall in love at a music festival, maybe not. So it just felt like a little bit more of a down to earth date,
Yep.
minus the helicopter. But
Well,
anyway.
but even the helicopter was actually not that over the top.
Mhm.
I mean, we've gone on vacations with helicopter rides and stuff like that, so it's in the attainable realm.
Mhm.
But yeah, I completely agree. It we know from past seasons, I am very critical about the actual date
Mhm.
activities. Right. I want time to speak to somebody, talk to them, get to know them. I want to put them in situations where I can see how they're going to respond and react. And some dates do that for me and some dates don't. I thought the wedding date, while I don't really like the whole fake wedding kind of concept, I didn't like it in Golden when they did the wedding dress photo shoot. I didn't really like but at least there was one-on-one time. You could see them in a social setting. You could see how they behave in ways. So like there was something to grab onto there,
Mhm.
right? Meanwhile, group date two, terrible activity,
Yeah.
absolutely horrendous because you learn really very little about these people other than how they are going to engage in a competitive environment. Okay, great. That's going to be somewhat valuable, but like at this stage, I think there's a lot more important things I'd want to
Mhm.
know. And this date, one-on-one date with Daisy, just it hit all the check boxes
Yeah.
for me. A lot of one-on-one time, the ability to talk, see him in the element. There was a play the games and just like the whole thing. And it felt like it was a little bit more of a longer date,
Mhm.
which is really nice. Some of them feel very
Mhm.
abbreviated. Yeah, a big fan of the activity as a whole.
Right, right. So, what is interwoven throughout the whole episode, especially the beginning portion, the day portion, is that Daisy really wants to tell Joey about her hearing loss, her health, and the fact that she has a cochlear implant. And she's, feeling anxious about this. And we learn a little bit through her face to camera interviews, and then later on, as she is sharing with Joey about what she's been experiencing since she was a kid, that she was sick for quite a long time, and quite significantly she had sounds like a severe case of Lyme disease, and it impacted her hearing, and just her life, her well-being, and that her cochlear implant is relatively new, and so she is really just hearing things, getting used to hearing things again for the first time. She's only dated one other person,
One other date.
one other date,
Yeah.
yes, since having the implant. And she also kind of shares like, dating me is going to be different than dating anybody else, and this is what I need from you. I need you to be looking at me and for us to be looking at each other in order for me to know that it's you. And she seemed at times a little bit apologetic about it, but at times just kind of like, this is what it is, and I think that you need to know this about me. But it did seem like she was feeling, yeah, very anxious of what what his response would be.
What I really love about it, there's just so many positive things I can say about Daisy and this date. But the resilience that she
Mhm.
showed, the tenacity that she showed, the way that she took a bad thing and she's spinning it into a career in a nonprofit.
Mhm.
I mean, I love every single piece of what she's doing and
There's a term for that.
falling in love.
No.
Oh, what?
It's called post-traumatic growth.
Oh,
And we don't actually know how, like, if Daisy had post-traumatic stress. What she went through is certainly traumatic, but we don't know that she actually had like trauma symptoms from it. But when someone goes through something traumatic and they're not just resilient, because resilience means that you bounce back to where you were, which is of course amazing, and we want that for people. But post-traumatic growth is when not only does someone bounce back, but they actually um, propel so much more forward as a result of what has happened to them. And this is a really good example of that.
yeah, and it is such an attractive quality in a person.
Mhm.
I don't care if you're a guy or a girl. Like you see somebody do this and it's just such an attractive
Mhm.
quality because it tells you something about their character when times are always going to get hard, especially in a marriage, any relationship. Life is filled with
Mhm.
obstacles and it's filled with bad things are going to happen, and this gives you confidence that that person has the resilience, is going to be there
Mhm.
through the thick and thin. And yeah, I love every part of her story.
Mhm.
I think she's wonderful. She's unbelievably sweet, unbelievably genuine. And look, I have a tendency to look at anybody who goes onto one of these shows with an air of suspicion about whether or not they're really there to date and get married, or if they're there for the, you know, the clicks and the clout and the influencer status. This is somebody I could get on board being like, no, you know what? Like, she went through something and she's making the most of life. And this is going to be an experience she was going to try. And she genuinely is looking for somebody. Like, I believe her, right? In a way that I just don't believe most other contestants. Golden Bachelorettes aside, because I do think there was a lot more genuineness in the Golden Bachelorettes than in, you know, the whatever. But yeah.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that, on the believability, on the authenticity. Yeah, I'm in. And I think Joey had a very similar reaction. Like, he used the word resilience to I don't remember if it was to her, to the camera, and just talking about, like, that really stuck out to him. And I think he had felt like knowing this did grow his, like, affection and attractiveness to her. Yeah.
So one thing I want to point out about Joey's response, and I want your take on this. It was noticeable to me, but I don't know if I'm overvaluing it. But she talked about her health problems and her Lyme disease, and then talked about her hearing loss. And it's unclear if those are related or if they're just, she literally just, you know, basically got struck by lightning twice. But when she got done telling him about the hearing loss, what did he respond with? Didn't touch the hearing loss, circled back to, let's talk about your health problems. How are you physically and stuff like that? Health, like, the hearing loss was not a problem, didn't make a big deal of it, didn't care, focused on what seemingly would be the more important thing, which was in many ways felt like the thing that she was
downplaying.
Well, not downplaying. She was less concerned about, because I think in one hand it's like, oh, I had Lyme disease, I had rough time, but I'm fine now. So it's part of the past, but it's not going to be that big. But the hearing, that's what you're going to be propelled. And he was more interested in the more serious concern that has passed than he was about the lingering thing that, you know, with the weird hearing loss. Did you was that noteworthy to you? Am I over?
No, I did notice that. And this is sort of what I was referring to a little bit before, in terms of how Joey received certain information. And one thing that I just don't envy someone like Joey, who, or any of the bachelors, bachelorettes that are in the seat of constantly hearing other people's hardships, and having to, on national television, respond in a way, and to the person, right? But being filmed, respond in a way that is caring, empathic, genuine, doesn't trauma dunk back. So it's without training, it's really hard to do. And I did find it interesting. Like, there was something that I wondered, like, there was a part of me that felt like he doesn't really know how to respond to the hearing loss. And so he bought himself a little bit of time by like exploring curiosity around her health as a whole. It's like, sorry, a therapist trick. When really we're really not sure what to say, or we're trying to gather our thoughts still. We might like just like stay in curiosity. Yeah. No, I wouldn't say dodge or deflect, but like somewhat buy time. That probably sounds shitty to hear if you're a client, but really, like, it's so important. Like, our responses are so important, and we're like, as therapists, like the meme of the woman who's doing calculus in her head, like, that's what it is to be a therapist all the time, is like trying to really stay present and think about also what that person said, how that might connect back to something that we know, like, and again, how to respond in the way that's going to be helpful to this person, not just comfortable for us. And so that's what I wondered about in terms of what might have been going on for Joey, because what I love that he didn't do is say something like, wow, or like respond in a way that almost like sensationalized what she was saying. I felt like he kind of stayed with her and just like really listened and asked questions.
Is that when you say, you tell me all the time, I need to be more of an active listener, is what he does, is that active listening?
So it's one thing I commented on while we were talking is like, wow, Joey does a lot of reassuring. Like, he'll say like, it's okay. take your time. It's okay. Take a breath. And some of it almost feels a little too abrupt. Like give her some space, man. Like let her just like get it out. And then that's like one of those, like, are you doing that for you? Or are you doing that for her? But I think he's pretty good. He has therapist face though. His face was not very emotive as he was receiving the information. Like his face wasn't giving active listening.
Okay. What does that active listening face look like?
The
Because I
thing
know
that
that
you criticize me and Catherine doing all the time, which is like nodding while someone.
you guys nod a lot. You guys nod a ton.
We hear that, Catherine. We have notes.
Yeah, lots of nodding. Yeah, I nod every once in a while. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, look,
But yeah, eye contact, like even the like something to indicate that you're actually paying attention to what the person is saying.
Okay. It's not.
And it could be like reflecting back what you heard, some sort of validating statement, asking questions.
Okay. And the validating statement, that's where I get into trouble because I don't do enough validating statements, correct?
You go more into like fix it rather than like validating statement. I wouldn't say you're like for all of you listening, Chris is not an invalidating asshole. Like you just want to solve the problem.
I'm a problem solver. That's where I operate. Yeah. Because we're busy. I got time to, if there's a problem, let's just get it over with. Let's get it done with and fix and move on with life. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I think we've gushed over Daisy a lot.
So she, no surprise, gets the one-on-one date rose. Yep. So Joey's already given out 2 roses at this point, 1 to Jess, group date 1, 1 to Daisy, one-on-one date. And then we head into group date 2, which we don't really need to spend much time on. We
talked about it already. All I want to say is, whoever designed that version of Capture the Flag has never played Capture the Flag.
I don't understand the point of the paint.
It made no difference. Like, I don't even understand why they bothered with it. The goal was to keep the person away from stealing the heart. So drop the paint and just body tackle these people. Like, I didn't get any of it. None of it made any sense. Anyway.
But Edwina is the one that wins. She was on the blue team, which was the winning team. And Joey really saw her hustling.
She was most aggressive. She wanted the most, and she laid everything on the line. And
what I appreciated about their exchange about it, and what Edwina had said was, listen, I'm not like very vulnerable, or it's not very easy for me to be vulnerable with my words. And so I wanted to show you with my actions how much I want to be here and how much I want time with you. And I was like, that's for someone that has a hard time communicating, like that was perfect.
Well, she didn't say she had a hard time communicating. She had a hard time with talking about emotions and vulnerability. And yeah, so I mean, I thought that was, I caught that too. I really loved that. You often talk a lot, and this actually kind of goes back a little bit to the Daisy thing, where you talk a lot about like, tell people what you need, ask for what you need when you need it. Don't assume people are mind readers. And like one thing that Daisy did on the one-on-one date was exactly that. She said, I need, if you want this to work, this is what I'm going to need from you. And this is what you can expect back. In a very straightforward manner. And Edwina did something a little bit similar, obviously nowhere near quite as dramatic because it's a different scale we're talking about here, but it was a similar type of thing where I'm meeting you head on, telling you kind of exactly what you can expect. And I thought he met the moment fairly well.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I thought Edwina did a wonderful job here. One thing that you and I have criticized on the show, which Catherine and I have as well. And for those of you who are new to Reactivity TV, Catherine has been my co-host of Reactivity TV for a while. But this idea of like having to dump a trauma in order to get a rose, and or sometimes like sharing too much in a situation that almost feels like too soon. And Edwina did a perfect job of sharing just enough about what her upbringing was like, the like culture of her family, and how that has impacted her and who she is today. And it was just enough. It was the perfect amount for in this setting, like a first date, where, okay, we know about her. We know how much pressure she feels. We know how much pressure she puts on herself and that she internalizes. We know that it's going to be, she's going to take this really seriously and that she's really in it to win it. That is like how she was raised. And we also know that like she was raised in a way that like you are you are responsible, like you take care of people, and like the feeling stuff comes second.
Mhm.
And so like we learned a lot about Edwina in that
In a
exchange.
relatively short
Mhm.
period of time.
And
Yes.
all meaningful, deep, like vulnerable and like emotionally intimate ways. And so that I give Edwina an A+ for the way that she engaged with Joey. And it seemed like it almost took her by surprise
Yeah.
how much she shared and how emotional and vulnerable she got. And maybe that speaks to her readiness and willingness to shift some of that, but also how disarming Joey might be too.
Yeah. Yeah. Shall we move on to cocktail party?
Oh, sorry, Edwina gets a rose.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So now 3 roses are gone.
3 roses are gone, but it doesn't matter because he's got 19 to give. So, I mean, there's still roses everywhere, to be seen. So we roll into cocktail party. Background is that, so Medina is concerned about the fact that she's 31 and the oldest in the house. Maria, who's quite confident in herself, basically makes the statement of like, yeah,
I'm older than Joey too.
like I'm older than Joey too. Like it, like 31's not old, 29's not old. And Sydney, who is buddies with Medina, decides that this is going to be the battle she wants to fight.
Well, because she sees or overhears Maria relaying this to one of her friends and basically like describing the interaction, basically saying like, we're not old. Like this isn't old. And yeah, for the record, it's not old. Not old. We'll come back to Medina in a second, but and so that's what kind of sparked.
Yeah, the
Sydney?
whole Sydney, yeah.
Right.
Because she's going home next episode, so it doesn't matter. Don't bother learning her name. I'm surprised she went through this episode, but
Not to keep her.
Yeah, I mean, the reality here is that I do have some blame here that I want to put on Maria. You are setting yourself up as the secondary target after Jess. With the wardrobe change and all that other stuff, your self-confidence, we all appreciate it, but at the end of the day, like, take your shots and then lay low, duck and cover. Like, don't talk about the other women in the house. Period. Whether if they're not in the room and you're not talking to them directly, and you're not saying something that is super like nice and fluffy, like somebody is going to have it out for you, and somebody is going to talk smack. So just don't even give them the ammunition. She should know this at 29 years old, or she's 29. Yeah, she should know this. And even though I agree with her in her sentiment, I don't think that her delivery was particularly good.
I agree.
And I don't like the way that she had the conversation. I don't know who she was talking to that evening that was overheard by Sydney. I don't think that the way that conversation went, she was setting herself up to have this situation. So I think Sydney handled it terribly. This is Maria's fault, right? Thoughts?
No, I agree. Well, I think that everything up until I think her initial exchange with Medina was. Did we see that
in the room itself when she's like, "I'm old too"? That was in the cocktail party. This was even this, or I'm sorry, no, this was the night before the cocktail party. This was that was the after party, the wedding after party when that happened, right? I think that was a wedding after party. It wasn't at the cocktail party. That's
So I can't necessarily blame Maria for venting or whatever, just like talking to chit-chatting with a friend. Like you do forget where you are, you forget you're being recorded, you forget you're mic'd up. I probably would have vented to my can you believe this woman? She's
thinking she's old at 31.
Or just she, making a big deal out of this. And I don't think Maria is in the wrong for that. She wasn't, as far as we saw, shit talking Medina. She was just more like, this is crazy. And so there were parts where I was like, okay, Maria, okay, you wanna out the person that brought this information to Medina, and you want to just have a face-to-face about it. Okay. Did you have to do that in front of everybody? Probably not. It was the way you handled that with Sydney. Great. Nope, not at all. Did you then go right to Medina and try to like smooth things over, patch things up.
Well, she went to Medina first, and Medina was having none of it. So she did try to go to Medina first. And it was only after she struck out there that she went and confronted.
Yeah, because she was feeling so frustrated. Like this was a nothing thing.
Yeah.
And that was really what the dialogue was about between Sydney and Maria, was like Maria saying like this was a nothing thing, and Sydney saying like, but that's the point though. This is not nothing to Medina, and you're invalidating her feelings. Like,
and I'm sorry, Sydney. Did we hear any like Medina didn't say that? This is Sydney talking on Medina's behalf.
Yeah, we don't know what other conversations were had. We know from the ITMs, the face to camera interviews, that Medina was saying, you know, I'm 31, I'm the oldest person in the house, like essentially the clock's ticking, like I gotta get going here. And so I could imagine the insecurity there, and insecurity brewing even more as 24-year-old Jess gets a rose, right? And so I can understand that feeling of like, you know, feeling like it must be me, and maybe it's this thing that I have no control over in my age. And so she's just already feeling insecure, and this is just kind of a low-hanging fruit to grab onto. And it, you know, very unhelpful thought. But like, so what I'm saying is like her feelings are valid, right? Like they're not like
Medina's feelings.
Medina's.
Yeah, absolutely.
Feelings are valid. And it can still be true that like your reaction is disproportionate to the situation, to the facts. And what Maria can also be saying is true, in that like, use your age as an advantage. Like you're here because he liked you. Like you're hot, you're like gorgeous, like own that. And
we come back to what you were saying earlier about Maria having no problem pumping other women up and empower you. I think you used the word, she's trying to empower them, is what you were saying. We were watching the show together. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really what she was trying. She wasn't trying to invalidate Medina's feelings.
I don't think she was successful in her presentation of that empowerment, but I do feel like, as you pointed out, like I do genuinely think that's what she was trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's why she was like having this disconnect. Like, I don't understand like why we're having this argument. Like when I was saying it's not a big deal, it's because I was trying to say to her, like, you're fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the thing where she was just like, this is the dumbest thing ever. And she was right. It was pretty dumb.
Which I agree. Yeah.
I was very glad that we didn't see any one of those women go to Joey and talk about that.
I thought Sydney was absolutely.
I was bracing myself because I think I had said to you, the way Joey handles this is going to
dictate your opinion for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I'm happy that we dodged a bullet there of me potentially like disliking Joey.
Yeah.
So enough of them. We've already spent enough time on this non-drama drama. We have to talk about Lauren.
You called it. About halfway through the episode, you turned to me and said she's self-eliminating this episode. And I was like, yeah, I can see it. And lo and behold, she self-eliminates. She pretty much spirals the entire episode. We saw her spiral last episode. It's pretty clear that she's just not emotionally ready for this environment. And she really struggled, really struggled.
And Joey said that too. Like this just might not have been a good fit. And it seems again, and she had said her grief is really activated. And I think it took her by surprise. She wasn't expecting to, get this wave of grief. And it seems like it's been really hard for her to kind of like ride that wave, coupled with just the setting itself. And it just wasn't a setting that she can thrive in. So I think she did the right thing in self-eliminating, but her exit was not very graceful.
No. Well, there's a couple things here. One is we had said last episode that Joey's not picking her. She's dead in the water. And he did nothing to even pretend like he wanted her to stay.
He's like, all right.
Like, see ya.
So yeah. So Lauren leaves.
The best is when she says, maybe I'll see you at hometown.
Yeah. Hey, maybe we will.
I mean,
I love it. I have Allison. Yeah. Let's go. Yep. So then we head to the rose ceremony. Not a particularly surprising rose ceremony.
I didn't know more than half the names. I did not know.
You're not gonna yet. You're fine.
I'm not supposed to know at this point.
Yeah, I don't know one of the women that got eliminated.
Who got eliminated?
I'm making a guess.
Is it Marlena or something?
I think
like
so.
That?
So the people that we know for sure went home. Obviously, Lauren, who self-eliminated.
Yep.
Erica.
Well, I guess Ford did go home. So he had 18 roses. There were 18 roses to give.
Okay.
Not 19. I was wrong. Sorry, America, and 29% Canadians. The four that go home, Lauren self-eliminates, Taylor, Erica, and apparently Marlena, who I didn't even know she was on the show.
Mhm.
Um, thoughts from this week's episode?
Okay. I'm still in. I'm in.
And okay.
It moved pretty quickly. It wasn't dragging. I like Joey. He's very handsome.
Seems
And
like a nice guy.
I like Daisy
Yeah.
still.
All right, let's Rose and Thorn it then.
All right. What's your Rose and Thorn?
Okay, so my rose this week, I'm back to back weeks. Ham, you saved us with having cable at your house because otherwise this would have been an awful recording, probably a virtual recording like 2 days from now. And so yeah, your parents are getting the rose for bailing us out by having cable when our streaming service went down today.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
My thorn for the week is at Trader Joe's Mandarin chicken. What about you?
My rose this week goes to the group date number one
Mhm.
because we've often seen a bridal situation on these shows. I don't like it.
Mhm.
I didn't love this date, but why it gets my rose is it shows us that the show is trying to change and trying to do something different and trying to be creative. Musical chairs, love it. Like any way that they can incorporate a little gamesmanship, a little competitiveness, putting a spin on something that like we see all the time. Like we know there's going to be some sort of wedding date. And so I liked that they changed it up. We didn't get a wedding photo shoot. Thank goodness. And so my rose goes to group date number one slash the show for changing it up, for being
a little creative.
being creative. Love to see it.
Okay.
My thorn goes to group date number two because I just did not understand what was going on. I did not understand, like we got nothing from that date except Edwina. I mean, that was great. But like no extra time. We didn't really learn much about the women other than Edwina. Didn't understand the rules of the game. And so like and the other thing I guess thorny along with this is it was also not clear, like unless you like looked at the cast list, who didn't get a date. Like usually it's a little bit more obvious than that. And so I just felt like I didn't really have a good grasp. Like I was trying to keep track of like, okay, wait, who was on the blue team and who was on the red team? Like it was so hard to keep track of. It almost felt like they were just like pushing us forward. And I felt like I could have used a little bit more information all around. Specifically on the second date, it was just kind of like a filler.
Yeah.
Could have done better.
No, I completely agree. I had similar sentiments. Actually, originally I was thinking that my rose was going to go to that date as well. But I will audible my real rose. My real thorn. Yes, the Trader Joe's Mandarin chicken is in there still, but my real thorn is the pity rose that he gives, kind of the week back pity rose that he gives to Jess. I hated to see that. It was undeserved in my personal opinion. And you know, you want to give her a rose at the rose ceremony, fine, but it just didn't. It just didn't feel like that was warranted or worthwhile use of a date rose.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shall we get out of here?
We shall. Is there anything else that they need to do regarding Survivor game?
No, as long as your picks are in, you're in the game.
Well, thank you everyone for playing. It definitely made going into this episode a lot more fun. So let's keep that same energy going as we go into week 3 next week. We will be back then for another episode of Reactivity TV. If you can't wait until then for more content from us at Revive, definitely be sure to check out our other podcast, Wishing You Well. That is still with my co-host, Catherine, who is another therapist, where we help you navigate your wellness journey each and every week. And on this week's episode of Wishing You Well, it's a pretty raw, pretty vulnerable episode where Catherine and I do a catch up. Catherine was just on maternity leave and we hadn't caught up for 4 months and we had a lot to say and a lot to share. So definitely check that one out. It was vulnerability hangover for sure for me. So we've got that going on. That's on YouTube. That's also on, Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So you can go check that out. You can follow us at Revive CFW on Instagram. You can check out our website, revivecfw.com, and you can follow me at Amy Alvaro LCSW on Instagram. But I think that's it. It's time to go to bed. We will see you next week. Bye.
Midnight again, See ya.